Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 16 of U101. You'll be starting TMA 3 and Module 3. It's all about design and society. The idea behind that is you will have talked to some people and started to develop coherence and consistency with a group of people, but now you're looking at society where it gets a little bit more complicated, and it might not be as straightforward to get these coherent ideas, or you might have conflicting interests. So it's all about trying to understand what's going on within these big contexts and trying to make something out of that and find a solution that works for a good amount of people, or the right amount of people, or the right type of people for whatever you're designing. That can feel all sort of vague. As you're reading this, there's some really beautiful examples, so it'll really start to make sense. These societal values, these societal issues. One of the things that I may want to add to it is that when you're looking at design for society, there's kind of two big strands of that. There's designing for societal values and then designing with societal habits in mind. So the idea of values is, of course, things like kinship. It might be cultural values that sort of backdrop your life. It might be something that you grew up with, the value of a good meal and being surrounded by family, or it might be about career focus. So those are different values. And then when it comes to habits, those are often things that you'll do as an individual, so you may not feel like you share that amongst other people, it's sort of your thing, but then that it is repeated across lots of other people. So the idea of maybe thinking about driving and how there's a real difference between driving on the countryside on single lane roads and the habits that you have when you drive in that context versus the habits that you'll have when you're driving in London, for instance. There's a lot of different attitudes and ways of doing things that will shift depending on what context you're in, or depending on what part of this society that you're sort of within the boundaries of. Habits can also include, you might think of the daily commute or the daily coffee ritual. You might make yourself a French press, and that's something that's very much a habit that you do, and it's a practice that you're used to. Or while you're doing that, you check your phone, and it's a very individual thing for you every day, but then other people might be doing the same thing. So that's where it becomes a societal habit. Now, as you're going through, again, like I said, there's a lot of really great examples. There are some things that feel a bit dated. So there's a 1950 reference to a 1957 book about hidden values or hidden habits. If you need something a bit more contemporary, a bit closer to home, you might think of Hooked by Nir Eyal, or Nudge by, I can't remember the name, but I'll put it on the screen now. So Nudge and Hooked are really good books to understand what's going on in terms of habit forming, in terms of influencing people to have certain dispositions or certain attitudes or certain practices on a more societal scale. So those are some really good books. If you are really interested in the topic, I would highly recommend them. And then otherwise, when it comes to, I think there's also reference to a 1998 ad. So it does become really blatant for us, 23 years down the line from a 1998 ad of like, okay, yes, obviously they're doing these like real sort of tactics, but take a look at some of them from today. If you do go on social media, take a look at the kind of ads that that are targeting you, and try to understand, what they're saying. What are they trying to attract in you? Is it your habit of buying specific things? Is it your values of having high quality clothing, or easy to buy clothing, or sort of throwaway clothing? So think about how that is attractive to you, and then you'll start to understand the values behind things. And that's what you're trying to do. You're understanding an individual, but you're abstracting that to sort of a bigger playing field of lots of individuals. And that's what designing for society is all about. Now, I won't get into much more. We have a tutorial at the end of the week on Saturday, so I highly recommend that you come to it. We'll be talking about TMA 3 and the board game and all the concepts behind that. Good luck with the start of this module. It's really interesting. It's a really fun perspective. Don't be intimidated by it. We're not asking you to solve hunger through your board game at the end of this, but it's just about getting an introduction into understanding what all of this means when it comes to designing for a society. So enjoy. Right. See you.